This team, you can leave out half a dozen guys that would have a good shout at being regarded as the best players on the planet and still win comfortably.
When you're talking about Handré Pollard, you got to remember that this guy was not just instrumental, he probably single-handedly is the reason that you are world champions at the moment.
People can match the physicality of the Springboks. What they can't match now is the quality, the flair of the players that Rassie has brought into the mix.
DSPN is brought to you by Novus Glass, proud partner of the Special Olympics New Zealand. The Special Olympics New Zealand National Summer Games is in Christchurch, Otautahi, this December. Across New Zealand, Aotearoa athletes, clubs, volunteers and families are getting ready, training, supporting each other and celebrating as the flame of hope travels down the country. Text Novus to 3598 to support our athletes. That's Novus, Novus, to 3598 to support our incredible athletes at the Special Olympics in Christchurch, Otautahi this December. Notice it, Novus it.
Welcome to the DSPN.
Team New Zealand's in trouble.
Goal! He's done it again, Ricky Herbert.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
DSPN, welcome to it. A couple of things on the podcast today. Tony Johnson from Sky Sport going to be joining us. Have a good look back at not only the win against Wales, but the whole season, put a perspective on it all, an overall grade. Many questions for Tony. That's a different episode. You can jump on that. Andy Capostagno joining us out of South Africa, a great old friend of the show, did a lot of work on Super Sport. He's got his own podcast, Stuff Rugby. Andy, welcome. So good to be talking to you when you're at the top of the world and there seems to be rather a large gulf between 1 and 2. You've been waiting for this a long time. I've been praying it would never happen.
Yeah, nice to be with you, Marty. And you've been top of the tree for 100 years, so it's not so bad if you just hand it over for just a few years. It's actually, somebody mentioned on a podcast this week that it's becoming really annoying covering South Africa because you run out of things to criticise. Every time you say, well, I don't agree with that and Rassie's got that wrong, it turns out that he knew and everybody else was wrong.
A few years back, and it was a few years back now, I remember having an argument on air with a couple of broadcasters of note in New Zealand who were moaning about the fact that the All Blacks were winning too easy. And that it was our responsibility to try and drag Australia up to our level. And I just was sitting there just gobsmacked thinking, this doesn't last that long. Enjoy it while it does. When you're dicking other teams, you celebrate that, because anyone that actually thinks, we need to even this up is a complete moron. When you're on top, you stay on top, you put the foot on the neck and you squeeze. Isn't that how it's meant to work in professional sport?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned the Wallabies, because one of the things that I always tell people is if you see an Australian on the ground, kick him, because you know he won't be down for long.
There you go.
And I don't know whether you're aware of this, but they've just lost 4 in a row in Europe for the first time since 1958. Incredible. Which I would describe it as BC, which is before catchpole. When catchpole arrived in the 60s, suddenly the Wallabies could play, and they've been pretty good ever since. But right now, for a variety of reasons, they're down. So kick them. Don't say it's a shame, because they'll be back. Yeah,
look, it's like their cricket team. I don't know whether you watched any of the Ashes over the weekend, but just when you think that, here we go, England. No, it happened again. I call it AEP, which is after Alice Park, because that really, there were 2 significant moments for the Springboks this year, wasn't it? There was that, and then, of course, Eden Park. But since Eden Park, and that's the best All Black win of the year and best performance of the year, you smashed us in Wellington. You beaten Argentina twice. Impressive. I could go through every game, but I won't. I'll go France and Ireland after that. Those are the big names in world rugby. And Andy, the most impressive thing looking from this lens is it's not just winning, because putting together winning streaks in international rugby is always difficult. It's the way that you're winning, the emphatic nature of it, the fact that this team can change and interchange so many different players. We're getting rather sick at this end of continually talking up a Springbok side that probably doesn't need talking up at the moment, does it?
No, it doesn't at all. The amazing thing that Rassie has achieved over the last 2 years, since the last World Cup win, is he's reinvented the side. You know, all the guys that you took for granted that they were going to be part of the mix going forward, gradually they're being squeezed out of the team. Willie Leroux is retired. Handré Pollard on this tour has been the third choice fly half. In the big games, he hasn't even made it into the squad. And if you'd said to anybody, I think last year, that would be the case, nobody would believe you. But we have found a generational talent, that's what they're calling them these days, in Sasha Feinberg-Mngomezulu, who has got into that zone where, because he's a special player, he feels that he hasn't quite lived up to the hype if he doesn't score a try. And, you know, he got another great one against Ireland, having had a relatively ordinary game. He, I think, is the difference. He's the reason that the Springboks have now opened that gap between them and the rest of the teams. People can match the physicality of the Springboks, albeit that it's quite difficult to do it for 80 minutes. What they can't match now is the quality, the flair of the players that Rassie has brought into the mix. They are no longer the old subdue and penetrate Springboks of history. This is a renaissance team, and like the podcaster that I mentioned, I'm getting sick of praising them. I really am. But I do tell people, enjoy it while it lasts, because it won't last forever. We all know that Rassie won't be around after the next World Cup, and Rassie being Rassie, it's not at all impossible that he might fall off the bus before then. But let's assume he doesn't. We've got 2 years to enjoy this, and then somebody has to pick it up and carry it on. And I would suggest that right now in South Africa, we don't have the person to do that.
Look, it's a bit like the Sir Alex Ferguson thing leaving Manchester United, isn't it? When this colossal personality, this incredible coach, this guy who just wins so much leaves, it is just such a void to the next one. A couple of things since that World Cup final in Paris, mate. Two things that I think that most people would never have predicted. One of them would be that the team can change gear, go up another gear. Because one of the hardest things to do in sport is not just win, but keep winning and then get better and keep winning again. And there are very few teams and personalities and players that do this. The other is when you're talking about Handré Pollard, you've got to remember that this guy was not just instrumental. He probably single-handedly is the reason that you are world champions at the moment, given the clutch kicks that he put over. Given that you had 4 penalties in the final, he kicked all 4 of those. So to even suggest that he doesn't play on this tour, when you play all these games, all these major important test matches, it's a long-winded way of saying this squad depth now and this ability to interchange players, is this something that is new to you as much as it is to us watching? You spend a lot more time watching South African rugby. Have you ever seen at any time over your life that this was the case, that you had this many players available to you and were able to change them around in different positions and play different kind of styles?
Oh, absolutely not. And I remember talking to you about what happened in New Zealand when Ted was coach, going up to one of the World Cups where he picked 2 separate sides because there was so much talent, and we were criticising him because now he didn't know what his best side was. So what Rassie has done is he's completely reinvented that. He doesn't know who his best side is anymore. He's got a squad of trusted lieutenants around him, Tony Brown being one of them. They get together and they map it out. Before they went on this tour, they knew who was going to be playing in what situations. The only malleable aspect of it would be yellow and red cards, and let's not even get into that nonsense. But other than that, you know, the team that played against Ireland on Saturday was the same team that played against France 2 weeks previously, with the exception of 1 injury and 1 ban. So they knew what they wanted before they went on tour. They also knew that they'd pick what we used to call the dirt trackers against Italy. Yep. And that's the thing that Rassie gets right more often than not now in both of the World Cups, because they've been sort of fly-on-the-wall documentaries. We've had real insights into the way that they operate behind the scenes. And Rassie just knows. And I commentated on him as a player. I commentated on him when he first moved into coaching, when he sat on the roof of the Free State Stadium before the lights came. He had coloured boards that he was holding up, and we would get him on camera so that the viewers at home could see this mad person who was sitting on the roof. And we all thought, no, well, this isn't going to last. Well, here we are. I think it's about 15 years later, and we're looking upon him as perhaps the greatest coach of all time. And it hurts me to have to say that because, I'm a journalist. I want to criticise. I want to be able to say you didn't get that selection right. And we all said Jasper Visser. What's he doing? Because he plucked Jasper Visser from obscurity. Zach Porthen went on this tour and played tight head, having captained the under-20s earlier this year. And I haven't even seen him play at club level. And Rassie just seems to know these days. And the other thing to mention is that I do a lot of school sport these days. Yep. And the next layer down, they are looking at these Springboks and they're saying, not wow, they're saying, well, I can do that.
Wow.
And the next generation, there's a kid called Siya who is signed on a 3-year deal with the Sharks. You will see him over the next couple of years. He's the best. He's left-footed and left-sided, but he's the best fullback that I've seen in South Africa since Andre Hubert. Obviously, I don't want to overhype him because he's only 18 years old, but I'm trying to make the point that these kids are out there now. They're watching what Rassie Springboks are doing, and they're not overawed. They're saying, "Yeah, okay, I can do that."
When you talk about the greatest coaches ever and the greatest teams ever, and a lot of people are comparing, and we are going to talk people about Ireland and that game on the weekend, which was just absolutely nut bar rugby, wasn't it? It was just a crazy, chaotic game. And you're talking about the best teams, best coaches. Obviously, the All Blacks between 2010 and 2016 as a team, 2 World Cups and so forth. But I think a lot of people, and you will go back this far, was it Carwyn James? Was he the coach of that Lions team that won in New Zealand in
71 and 74? Carwyn James, yeah. Absolutely.
So I don't think.
Yeah.
See, this is the problem these days with the 30-second attention span, dick pic Instagram generation, that they don't care, let alone want to know about this. But I don't think in any conversation you can't not include that team, that one on the road in New Zealand and one on the road in South Africa. And tell me another team that's gone and done that. So and in terms of him coaching as well, I'd like to include him in this conversation just because I think that it's important.
Well, and also, the thing about Rassie is that he's a very complex individual, and so was Carwyn James. He took his life at a relatively young age. He was gay, and he had ideas that did not fit with the rugby establishment. So he coached the Lions, but he never coached Wales.
Incredible,
and he was a proud Welshman. I mean, yes, that is an extraordinary thing to say. And Rassie is... Excuse me a minute.
Sure.
We'll edit that bit out.
Well, Rassie does this. Rassie does this to New Zealanders. He makes us choke as well at the moment.
Yeah, he's one of these guys, and he had it as a player. He does things that you're not expecting in ways that you're not expecting. I can't get rid of this bloody thing.
That's all right. You go.
Excuse me.
Oh, you do that.
Excuse
you clear
me.
your throat. I'll jump in. And I want to talk about this Ireland game because just watching it was just one of the weirdest things. You just think that you've seen everything in a game of international test rugby. And I thought Andy Farrell was right afterwards where he said, I haven't seen anything like this before. To go down to 12 players, Ireland, and then actually only concede 24 points was quite remarkable for them. You saw the lift in them from when they played us in Chicago. But I never felt that South Africa were losing that game. And it's one of those things when I'm watching you guys at the moment that you just seem to be able to, at the right moments in games, change whatever it is and go up again, go up another gear. That was the mark of all of those great All Black sides, wasn't it? Any great side in sport is it's the ability under pressure to be able to handle those moments and then strike again. And that's just one of the... Look, I go through a whole list here trying to find weaknesses in the side or weaknesses in the squad or bits and pieces where you think you might attack them there, because there's no such thing as perfection. But you are above the rest of the world at the moment. I think that's clear, and we've got to be sensible about that.
Yeah, and I think that is a fair point to make, and it might not last too much longer. You never know. But here's the point. I think that previous generations of great teams and great players, if you lost a couple of players, if Scoutberger wasn't available and Brian Habana wasn't available and Bakkies and Victor weren't available, the Springboks of the mid-2000s weren't a great side. Now, this team, you can leave out half a dozen guys that would have a good shout at being regarded as the best players on the planet and still win comfortably. And the Ireland game, to me, I was fascinated by... I suspect that Andy Farrell, who, remember, has a rugby league background and is quite happy to just fight when the opportunity arises, I suspect that their way of dealing with the Springboks was, well, let's get in their faces and let's make our tackles and let's just be a little bit physical and try and knock them off their game. And it failed spectacularly. And they lost so much, I think, in the eyes of the general rugby public by being murdered in the scrums. And Andrew Porter, who is regarded as a very, very fine loosehead prop, first of all, he gets a yellow card, but more importantly, he's been pushed back all afternoon by the Springbok pack. And here's the other point that I'd like to make, is that when they played France, I think they looked upon France as a far different kettle of fish. And you saw that kind of controlled fury that they used in the knockout stages of the last World Cup. You didn't see that against Ireland. I saw a team that was able to rise above these tactics and be very calm at the breakdowns, and they didn't give what they were getting. And the referee, in order to level up the game, had to try and send one of the Springboks off for celebrating a turnover. Now, that's just ridiculous. But I would say, having mentioned the referee, Matthew Carley, I thought was brilliant. He made all the right decisions. He made sure that the players understood why he was making decisions. And if all of our international referees were as strong-minded as he, we wouldn't be talking about the ridiculous red cards and yellow cards that have happened over this European tour. And the real problem is that he's not getting backup from his assistant referees and his TMO, because those people aren't in the same space as him as officials. And when you think that the guy who got sent off for the attempted mugging of Malcolm Marks,
James, I think
it was such an obvious straight red card,
dumbass, total dumbass.
And yet, having decided, look, I'm not going to give him a red card, I'm going to leave it to the bunker. So he gives him the yellow, he sends him to sit down. It took them 7 minutes. I'm a journalist and I was watching the clock. It took them 7 minutes to make that decision. Now, what do you think they were talking about in that room? I'll tell you what they were talking about. It was, how can we mitigate this? How can we make sure that it's not a straight red card? And that's what took 7 minutes. Absolute nonsense. But when you consider what happened to Franco Mostert the week before and Lud Diaga the week before that, we'll take it on the chin as Rassie would and carry on.
Let's leave it with what's going to happen next year and the year after that when we go to the World Cup. We've got you guys, obviously, we're touring next year, which is massive. But, is this squad going to be together in 2 years' time? Is it going to be long in the tooth? Will we see a number of these names we're looking at now drop out, and then they will be replaced? And is that going to be perhaps the chink in the armour? Because it's easy enough to say, hey, we've lost Faf and we've lost a couple of other players and we're going to replace those players. But hard-ass test experience at World Cup and also playing New Zealand over 3 or 4 tests is a different beast altogether. Is that maybe that just door opening a little bit for the rest of us?
Well, I think that Rassie has addressed that right the way through this season. He's brought players into the mix who weren't part of the last World Cup, looking ahead to the next one. And the name we haven't mentioned is Kolisi. Now, Kolisi is 34. He'll be 36 at the next World Cup. And if there is a chink in the armour, that's the one. Who's captain after Kolisi? Now, obviously, there are a number of senior players who've done the job. And when he goes off, they take over. Peter Steph du Toit did it on Saturday. Ibn Etzebeth has done it. Jesse Creel did it against you earlier this season. But none of them brings the moral authority to the field that Siya Kolisi does. And when we look back on Rassie's reign, the one decision that he made at the beginning, when he got everybody together in a room, showed them the team for Saturday, and then turned to them and said, and Siya, you're captain. And he hadn't told anybody. And Siya then took over the captaincy. He was, because he's a black player, regarded as not the best player in his position in South Africa. But if you look back at the success of these Springboks over the last 2 World Cups and now, the golden thread that hangs it all together is not just Rassie, it's Kolisi. Kolisi is a magnificent man, and probably in 10 years' time we'll find out naughty things that he's been doing, and we know that he did naughty things in his youth, but right now he's exactly what South African rugby needs and has needed for a long time, a man with massive moral authority to lead a team. Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make, is that if they go to the next World Cup without Kolisi, that's the chink in the arm.
And it is always so good catching up with you, and we'll do this again soon. And we've known each other a very long time, and I will say these words. You're the best team in the world, and you're the best team in the world by a long way at the moment. And the great thing is there's nothing better than having a target, and you know where it is, and it might be shifting and moving a little bit, but this is what the All Blacks have got to aspire to. We've been in that position ourselves a lot, and we know what it's like when the pack are chasing. So we look forward to next year a lot. We congratulate you on this year. It has been magnificent watching your team play, mate.
Thank you, and congratulations to young Fabian
Holland, yes.
Your Dutch fellow.
Yeah, Fabian Holland. Yeah.
Fabian Holland.
Yeah.
Congratulations to him, and congratulations to Malcolm Marx, Player of the Year. They got it right for once.
Huge thank you to Novus Glass for sponsoring this episode of the DSPN and for being a proud partner of the Special Olympics New Zealand. This December, over 1,200 incredible athletes, along with hundreds of volunteers, coaches and other support staff, will be making their way to Christchurch or Tautahi for the Special Olympics New Zealand 2025 National Summer Games. Novus Glass is proud to be supporting something special, and you can help support the athletes too by texting Novus to 3598. That's Novus, Novus 3598. Thanks again, Novus Glass, for supporting us here on the DSPN. Windscreen, crack or chip, notice it, Novus it.
DSPN.